Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Friday of an unbelievably spectacular sports weekend ahead, especially in regards to basketball. You've got Indiana hosting number 2 Kansas tomorrow at 12:30 on CBS. Then number 3 Purdue hosts number 1 Arizona at 4:30. In addition to the Colts hosting the Steelers, but even bigger than that, you've got Evansville Harrison taking on Jeffersonville tomorrow. And two of the combatants in that, Sherron Wilkerson, the head coach of Jeffersonville, former IU player, and Pat Graham, an assistant with Harrison now, had moved over from Memorial, who Memorial tonight plays Trent Sisley in Heritage Hills. So the connections just don't stop. First of all, thank you both for taking time to come on here today, man. It's awesome to have you both on.
Thank you.
It's wonderful, man. I really appreciate it, Mr. Coyle.
It's always, oh man, Jim, please, it's always a pleasure to have Sherron on and Pat both. But Sherron has just become one of the greatest citizens in this country, man. I mean, like, you should run for office, maybe.
No, I really appreciate that, Jim. I will be honest with you. In fact, I just told my team the story of the first time officially meeting Pat at IU. I mean, man, I've had so many people in my life that have for me been guardian angels. I mean, man, and not everybody obviously looks at it like that, but I remember the first time that I stepped on the floor at IU in Bloomington, and Pat introduced himself, and he made sure that I got the message of what it meant to be an IU basketball player. And man, I appreciate that more than he realized it to that day. So yeah, and that's a factual story.
And I'm sure that, and I'll get to Pat on that, but at the time as a freshman and getting that, it was probably a little shocking, but was it? Or was it just something that was educational?
No, I'll be honest, it was an honor. I mean, man, to have a guy like Pat Graham come up and tell you, man, basically he put me in my place. I can't say on air exactly what he told me, but he put me in my place. And I mean, man, and that immediately, man, the respect was immediately given. So I just, man, I'm just so thankful.
I'll tell this story because I've told this story a number of times. I think Sherron enjoys coaching, and I spoke to his team last year when he was down here in Evansville, and I think Sherron does it for a lot of the same reasons that I do it. But Sherron, of course, I was a fifth-year senior, and I went through 2 years of hell with my injuries, and I was kind of not in a very good spot with dealing with any BS, and I was just fighting to play another game at my last year, and Sherron comes in, of course, beyond talented, Steve Hart, some of those other guys. And we had a couple open gyms, and Sherron was pretty headstrong. Let's just say it that way. And I got called in by Coach Knight. And basically he told me I have total control of Sherron or I'm off the team. And I was kind of like, look, we're from the same area. We didn't go to the same high school. You know, I hate Jeff, blah, 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 you know, all that. And he said, I don't care. You take control of him or you're off the team. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So go across the hallway. Me and Sherron have a little discussion. And this is what I will say. And this is honest God truth. And I've told this story 100 times. Sherron within 1 hour did a 180. That day, that workout we had, he was a different person. And I talked to him later about it. And he basically said, I'd never had anyone speak to me that way and demand that way and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying I'm the reason that did it, but I did know I didn't have much rope to because Coach Knight was going to hang me with it, you know. So I said, I have to go talk to Sherron. I have to handle it. And we got to get this done quickly because I don't, Coach ain't going to play. And sure enough, that's how it happened. But yeah, that 180 within an hour. And I thought, man, Sherron's the most coachable kid I've ever been around.
That's awesome to hear and amazing to hear, because did you have anybody do that for you or need to do that for you when you got there? Because I know you were not, you played for Joe Hinton, so you were kind of prepared for Bob Knight.
I I had a little bit more fear going there. I don't think Sherron had much fear, and just the way it was. I mean, it's every kid's different, and again, we were 17, 18-year-old idiots basically, and know-it-alls, and we were told how great we were when we were in high school, and then when we get to college, it was a completely different story. And Sherron probably needed a little help with that, but like I said, I'm not saying it because he's on the air with me right now and I can see his face. I'm just telling you, I spoke to Sherron. I think Evans had someone else. I don't think his message went as well as mine did. And I just flat said, "Look, man, I'm done. I don't have any time. I don't have, I'm running out of time. I've lost 2 years of playing basketball." And we had a little come to Jesus talk. And I'm, like I said, 180, 1 hour, 60 minutes. He was another player. When he broke shattered his, the spiral break in the NCAA tournament, I mean, frick, I cried. I mean, it was awful. And he was one of the best. And I've said it. People ask me all the time, who's your best teammates, blah, blah, blah. And Sherron Wilkerson's name's always there. And I'm not saying it because he's on the air with me here right now.
He was a talent, state champion, all-star, every accolade you can imagine, as were you. So Indiana was full. You talk about talent, and we talk about the inability of Indiana's three-point shooting right now. The other day, I was looking back in the record book, Pat, specifically, and I was looking at for career all-time three-point shooting. Not just you, of course. You're up there right behind Steve Alford and Jay Edwards, who had just micro seasons, but 5 of the top 11 all-time three-point shooters were on that damn team. 5 of 11 all-time. That's crazy. I mean, of course, Todd Leary's at 11th. You've got Greg Graham, Calbert Chaney, Damon Bailey, yourself. It's just nuts. And then the other 2 of the others are Edwards and Alford, who were just immediately before you guys. So that short period of time is still to this day the bulk of the all-time three-point shooting for Indiana. And I think that's kind of a problem. It shows that Indiana has not continued that, because you've got to have some guys where Jordan Hulls is up there, of course, Nick Zeisloff, and then Christian Watford, Armand Bissett rounding it out. But no one has broken into that since 2014. So that, to me, that kind of shows, oh man, you got to get somebody. There's got to be every 10 years or so, somebody's got to jump into that category.
Here's the weird thing about three-point shooting. And I know there's 1,000 things to talk about, and there's 1,000 opinions, and there's, whatever. And to be honest with you, I'm not saying I'm right and everyone's wrong. I'm just saying this is one of my views on it. I think the Big Ten, I think the three-point line come in my senior year, maybe my junior year. I don't even really remember. But here, and this is the reason I say that, Joe Hinton never talked about it. My high school coach never spoke about it. Blaine Dustin Joe never brought the three-point line up. I can remember I shot a shot on the line one time in practice, the very first or second practice. We had the line down. And I remember Joe pulling me aside and said, "This is a bad shot." And my foot was on the line, and he stepped back 6 inches and he said, "This is a good shot." And that's the only thing that was ever brought up about it. He basically was saying, "I don't mind you shooting this shot. Don't think about it. Don't look down at the line, but you've got to be behind the line to get 3 instead of 2. It's the same shot, basically." Then you go to Bloomington with Sherron and with the Baileys and the Learys and the Evanses and all those guys. I don't really remember the three-point line being discussed. It wasn't talked about. We didn't run plays for the three-point line. It was there. It was a very small piece of the offense, but it wasn't the offense. I watch college basketball now, and Sherron knows this as good or better than I do. In high school, that's the whole offense. It's either dunks, layups, or three-point shots. And I have a tough time coaching that way because it's so foreign to me. And I don't know. And again, why Indiana has struggled at the 3-point line, I can't answer that. But it's just such an odd. To me, it's a different time, and it's just different than what that was back then. I don't think if those guys played today, I don't think we would shoot the percent. Hell, we may shoot better. I don't know. I would love to play today's. I would love to play if you shoot 3 or 4 or 5 or miss them, keep firing them. I would love to do that. Leary and I talk about that all the time, but I mean, the game has just completely changed.
Sherron, as well, you're head coach at Jeffersonville now, and you have to handle that. Today's kids are influenced by what they see, and so that in itself has to be a battle.
I think one of the biggest things, or one of the litmus tests, if you will, is the European game. I think if you look at the NBA, these European players have come over here, and all of them have pretty much have made athleticism obsolete. You know, you look at Jokic, he's one of the best players in the NBA, but his skill set is just so far and above most of the guys in the NBA, man, that it sets him apart. And I think that's a huge advantage. And man, I looked at a list the other day of the top 10 players in the NBA, and I believe 7 of them were European players. And I think that 2 reasons. Number one, because they win. And then number 2, no matter the position, no matter the height, they all can dribble, pass, and shoot it. And those are the skill sets that you have to have in the game of basketball to be successful. And I think that it starts with our grassroots here. You know, in the European leagues, guys, you have to go through a certification for 2 years to be able to coach. And specifically here in our country, in our grassroots level, I think that's where we're losing the battle. Because we allow people who necessarily, obviously, I think have the right intent, obviously, but the information, we need to get those grassroots guys the right information, so we're able to continue to build our basketball legacy here in the United States. So that's just my personal opinion.
And I agree with you, because they have been so influential. You look at Doncic down in Dallas, his guard play, it's crazy. Speaking of guard play, that has been a thorn in Indiana's side right now. They've got great interior play, but they don't have guys like either of you right now. With Xavier being hurt, you would be Xavier Johnson, the guy that can get to the rim, that can threaten that defense or put the ball up. And in Pat, you were just an unbelievable threat from outside. They don't have that. They don't have that guy who is a threat to get to the rim right now or to shoot the 3. And that's proving to be pretty difficult for a team that is running most of their offense through the middle.
Yeah, well, but again, I'll go back and say, a couple years ago we were saying, man, it's been a long time since we had a 7-footer. Now all of a sudden you got a 7-footer. So sometimes you might not have everything you need or want, but man, we got a hell of a piece in the middle now that we haven't had in a long time. So, there's a lot of give and take. The shooting thing, I still go back and I watched the Auburn game as much as I could. And, my opinion was, and I think it's pretty blatantly obvious, is their speed versus our speed. I joked with a buddy of mine, said it's the SEC football versus the Big Ten football, Big Tens, big linemen and all this stuff. A few years ago, everybody's talking about the SEC and they're all speed and everything. I said, man, my God, I'm watching the SEC Big Ten football a few years ago. And it was just the quickness and speed. Pearl had lathered up, and they were, they wanted to win so bad it wasn't even funny. And good for him. That's what he does. Great coach in that respect. But I mean, I just felt like we were in quicksand looking at Auburn, and scared to say it, but I mean, Kansas is no slouch, and that's the problem. And another thing, and I'll jump on, and I'll get on a tangent, but the 3-point shooting, we shot well. When we were back, we shot well because we shot good threes. We got threes. I mean, we didn't get horse threes because obviously there was a scouting report against us. But, I mean, we got good shots. It wasn't our complete and whole offense. And when you have Calbert Chaney on the floor, you got good looks because of Calbert's being a threat and he carrying 2 guys on his waist and back. And so that's the reason we were such good shooters, because we got good shots. And the struggle in today's offense in college, I'm not saying it's not doable, because obviously there's a lot of teams that do it. But, man, it is a different three-point shot compared to what our three-point shot was back in the day and how we shot it.
I want to talk about your all's game coming up, but the last thing for Sherron, can you imagine if it had been Pat Knight instead of Pat Graham that gave you that talk? How different that would have gone?
Yeah, I got to talk to both of them. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Now,
I gotta talk to both
how different were they? How different or similar were those two conversations?
Very similar in nature, very similar in language, very similar in the message that was received. Yeah, facts. Listen, Jim, I tell people all the time, man, and I was so blessed and so fortunate on so many different levels. Right, Pat mentioned his injury, and I do, and I'm not just saying this again, saying it because Pat's here. I truly believe that if Pat had stayed healthy, we would be talking about him being one of the best players to ever play the game at the highest level in the NBA. I truly believe that. You're talking about a guy that was athletic, a guy that could shoot it, a guy that knew how to play the game, a guy that could go. It was absolutely amazing. So I was very fortunate, man, to have guys that really cared and have guys around me that actually got it. So I couldn't ask for nothing more.
He stopped before he said the word defense. When he was giving those compliments, he stopped before he said the word defense.
Well, that was kind of optional back in the day, I think.
No.
Until not when you got to Indiana, it wasn't. You scored 50 points in the game. Was that against Jeffersonville?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, my junior year.
I remember that. I couldn't remember I thought it was. I couldn't remember, and I'm not throwing it out to throw it out, but I just was thinking of that. All right, now you guys are playing each other tomorrow in a high school game. Jeffersonville taking on Evansville Harrison, the former high school of Calbert Cheney. So that's got to be a cool thing for you, Pat. But how do you guys scouting each other? You calling up and say, hey, you want to swap films? Or that's what they did in the old days.
I honestly, first off, I'm the assistant coach. I'm not the head coach. Coach Cleaner is the head coach. But I've never been a head coach.
Hello.
I've always been an assistant. So I'm always I feel weird. Like I haven't reached out to Sherron this week because I'm like, I don't want him to feel like I'm going to ask a question or give him information or whatever. I just know how high school basketball is obviously very, very, very important. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to leave Sherron alone this week, and we'll catch up before the game and whatnot. But then you said, let's do this interview. And I'm like, all right, well, he can't get away from me now. So,
well, you guys going to hang on and do some scouting afterward, do some trading of information afterwards, Sherron?
Sherron's got the best team. There's no way they can lose.
Yeah, right.
Best coaching staff, the best team, the best players. It's pretty simple.
No, yeah, I appreciate that, man. We're actually in a unique situation. So we play Silver Creek tonight, who is 6-0, and then we turn right around tomorrow and got to drive to Evansville, and we got to play Harrison. And in fact, it's kind of funny, guys, because I'm sitting here watching Harrison right now. Hey, man, you guys are really good. Yeah, you guys are really, really good.
We're good right now because we're unselfish and playing together. You know how that works.
Yes.
That can end and stop real quick with some frustration. So right now we're running pretty well and enjoying it. And God, I coached at Memorial for about 10 or 12 years and I loved it. But the thing is, kids are kids. I love kids. I enjoy working with kids. And when parents and kids are fun, I'll go to the ends of the earth for them. And it's been fun last year and this year, both.